But nevertheless, let me editorialize about one more thing. The retro look with and they did a good job, as you mentioned, and we'll talk about the theme music and all that stuff, but you love it. I like the look of it, but I didn't like experiencing it. But the outway, they brought back
Oh,
the old outway, the bicycle racks, and it's 6 feet wide, and the people on either side, all the way down, can reach out and touch somebody.
it makes the guys look like bigger stars. It really does. And between that, I love the aisle like that. I think that's the way it should be. And by the way, it cuts down on your costs. If you don't have to lug around that
Well,
big
yeah.
stage, if all you need is that, and you're going to have people just by being fans giving you the appearance you want, where everyone looks like a star with people reaching for them, they should do that. I also like the red, white, and blue ring ropes.
Well, but hold, before we talk about the color scheme, let me just remind you of this, though. Would you say that right now, probably in all of the history of professional wrestling, right now, there is the least chance that any of the talent, any of the heels are going to be attacked by fans who are mad at what they have done in the context of the wrestling business, in their match or their promo or what they did last show or whatever? Has there ever been any time where there's been less chance? There's always a random nut, John Lennon, right? There's always some guy tackled Bret Hart at the Hall of Fame. But on a realistic level, has there been any less chance of heels being punched, assaulted, stabbed, cut, or otherwise maligned by a fan than any time in history right now?
No. And again, it's easy for me as the fan to say I love that look. Now, also, if you notice, there were two security guards behind everyone. It wasn't like they were next to them. Sometimes you would see wrestlers come out at the Garden. I know who the head of security was. He was the head of security at Long Beach High School, Teddy Suba. And they would come out there. They wanted to swarm the wrestlers and walk them into the ring. You didn't have that, probably because they didn't want the visual of it. But you'd have to do that.
You would have to do that. And even then, sometimes it didn't work. And that's the thing. The business has evolved to where now none of the fans are going to fuck with any of these guys. They don't believe anything. The heels don't have any legitimate heat. The booing while you're smiling about booing is not heat. And they've got 15-foot wide aisleways and these goddamn custom-built barricades and everything. You can't get within binocular distance of these motherfuckers in any setup today. But in the territory days when we stood a legitimate chance of getting punched or kicked or stabbed or fucking shit flung in our eyes or whatever, that's what the goddamn aisleways looked like. And it didn't make any sense, except the promoters wanted to sell as many tickets as they possibly could, and the most expensive ones were on the floor where you had to walk through. So sometimes they would make a change in a town because you'd had lawsuits or police trouble, or sometimes the building would make you. That New Orleans police barricade you saw at the downtown auditorium in New Orleans was instigated by the police because they were sick of the fucking issues. But we used to take a fucking pummeling just to get to the ring. And now nobody wants to fucking hit anybody, and they've got a bobsled run. It drives me out of my mind.
But that's the other thing. If they reintroduce barricades, maybe not as tight as they were here, maybe a little bit in between somewhere, there is going to be some crazy fan that feels encouraged to grab one of the girls by the hair or something. You would think, because once you start making it a little looser, a little easier to get them, there are still crazy fans. There may be crazier fans today, but just more like in the perverted sense, not in the dangerous sense.
They're crazier. They're just not as pissed off.
Right. They don't get laid. Imagine the crazy people back then who didn't get laid. But yeah, what the hell are we talking about? The way to the ring, yes.
The irony of, and the retro, so that kids, young people out there, that's what it looked like if they had those side railings. Sometimes we were in buildings where you just had the fucking cops, however many of them there was, to get on either side of you. And hope that there was enough because there was three of us and I was always in the middle, but you would hope. But that's what you would get beat up more on the way to and from the ring than you would actually performing the match. So nevertheless,
But yeah, I mean, I saw Piper, I think there's probably footage of Piper in that very same building walking to the back with security on both sides of him while people are throwing shit at him and people are trying to get to him. I mean, it's a different animal.
Cincinnati Gardens didn't have, I saw this in person. They didn't have any railings. They had the cops walk you down the fucking crooked aisle in ringside, right? On facing a corner post. And this guy, on the way to the match, this guy took a swing at Piper, and Piper dropped him and got on him. And I've never seen punches thrown so quick. I was looking down the aisleway. And all you saw was his hand or his elbow go up in the air and his fist come down about 5 times in 2 seconds. And then he got up and walked to the ring, and the fucking cops tried to pick this guy up that had jumped him, and they quit trying to pick him up and just drug him because he was twitching. But it was always fun.
What'd you think of the ring ropes?
Well, again, yeah, they still did the fancy railing around the ring, the barricade there with the padding and everything, but they did the old time color scheme. The referees had the blue shirts with the bow ties on like the 80s, and they brought the graphics back, and
it looks right.
The obsession for the theme say, "You're my obsession." And they mixed it. They did an open where they mixed the retro clips of the old show on a TV screen. Well, it's kind of corny. But then they went into the new footage, which looks so much better because it's, 40 years newer and it's high def. And then they did the old style pyro also. They did a professional job of making it look like it did in the old days, while at the same time not making it look as cheap as it may have looked in the old days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, although I actually thought it was a missed opportunity to begin the show with the promos, the style they used to do it, especially in the later half of the run of Saturday Night's Main Event, where you kind of had like fast-paced music going on, and everyone stood in front of their logo and had like 30 seconds to tell you why they were going to kick the shit out of the Brainbusters or whatever it was. That was kind of the intro. I thought they should have done that. I thought it really would have worked, too, especially considering, you had Sammy, you had Drew, you had Cody, you had Owens. Would have been a good introduction.
Well, but I think, because from what they did here, and I jotted down a note to remind myself to look for this, and they did, it was the Vince approach that he always used, which this wasn't bad. This was when he, was reasonably only partially insane. If he went to a new network or even on a new night or a new program or something where you could construe that you may pick up new viewers, he would do the show for the fans, but he would gear it more in terms of the announcing, in terms of the packages. He's appealing to a new audience. There's another level of explanation in the announcing. There's in the packages, anything is geared to making sure that you don't leave anybody behind that doesn't know who these people are or why they're mad. Which, again, when old Joe Tessitore, I don't think his voiceover opens have the urgency of Jim Ross's voice, but he's doing a great job of explaining things. And when you would see somebody walk in, here's Joe. He just won the title from Tom by fucking him with a red hot poker. It wasn't like Sockface does over in AEW where it's just a rapid fire gibberish delivery of Japanese names and moves that you've never heard of in tournaments and indie promotions. It's basic shit. This guy fucked this guy out of this because of this reason. And this guy wants to get even with this guy because he did this. That's what you saw, because they're wanting to pick up and appeal to a new audience Saturday night, NBC television, 8 o'clock, that might not normally be watching, and they want them to understand what's going on, which makes so much fucking sense. I can't believe I'm having to explain it.